another episode of the OCF. That's me, the outlaw of college football, also known as JPC. And today, boys and girls, I want to touch on something that Bob Stoops said the other day. He said a couple of days back. I'm getting on a little late, but nevertheless, I wanted to talk about it because he said some interesting things. You know, in the past, Bob Stoops has not been shy about saying what he feels and how he feels about something, even if he knows it's going to piss people off. And in this case, he didn't mince words again. And that's what I like about Bob. He tells people exactly what he thinks. And if they don't like it, well, then they can just, I guess they can just get glad just like they got mad, right? But Bob come out and said something about the NCAA's handling of the NIL and the transfer portal situations, mainly the NIL. And the first thing that Bob said that really struck me was the fact that the NCAA needs to go away, that they might, in fact, need to form their own union of some sort and have someone be the czar over it, whatnot, someone maybe like Bob Stoops. And another thing that he said was pretty interesting, but before I get to the rest of this, I would like to say that this is, thought I forgot, didn't you? This is, without a shadow of a doubt, the home of the Common Joe and Common Seller. No, even more so than all those media talking heads. Woo! There's that Ric Flair woo that the convict likes so much. Now, getting right to it. So Bob thinks that the NIL and the transfer portal have basically unmasked the NCAA for what we've already known for quite some time, that they're inept and they're very all over the place and very inconsistent in how they handle things and do things and how they're able to get certain things done in a timely manner, and then when they don't want to, they drag their feet, and then they don't punish certain teams for crimes that were probably more heinous than a crime that they punished someone else for that wasn't as heinous. Like the whole Oklahoma State situation that he alluded to, where they were probably a little over-punished and banned from postseason play. But that shows you how fair Bob is, because Oklahoma State used to be his chief rival in the state of Oklahoma, although I wouldn't call it that much of a rivalry. We won't get into that because I already pissed off some pokes with that before. But the other thing that Bob said was that eventually these teams probably need to get to the point, because it's like a farm system within a farm system now. And I ain't just talking about them taking players from the FCS. These are Power 5 teams filching off of other Power 5 teams. Power 5 teams that are probably considered more mid-card. You know, like Louisville, for example. Alabama took a wide receiver off of them, and now they're bitching and complaining about it and saying Alabama is tampering. Just like with Pittsburgh. You know, now Pittsburgh back in the days got a little bit of a history. They did win some national championships. They become sort of a mid-card team in the Power 5, and USC supposedly been tampering with their wide receiver. So what you're going to have to do, and it's just like Bob said, is you're going to have some regulations put in place, and I've said this 1,000 times. You're going to have someone come in, a new organization, come in, maybe take some advice from the NFL, have them come in and help as well. Come in and sit down and make some regulations with this. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I don't really know. I can't really lay it out what my plan would be for it, but I know that there's going to have to be some kind of regulations put in place, sort of like with the NFL, where you have rules against tampering, you have a cap, and like I said, all these greedy-ass relatives that are trying to hitch their wagon to these very young and naive players that can be conned. I mean, just take the Deion Sanders situation, for example, can be conned into thinking anything by older people. These players need agents that they can trust, which is hard to find sometimes. And they need a cap, and they need a rule for tampering, like I just said. If you get all those rules in place, then maybe we can have some kind of semblance of fairness. Now, with teams like, for example, Wake Forest, or maybe someone like Oregon State or Washington State or Purdue, some of these lower level, you have to implement something where it's fair for everybody, so we continue having the college football as we know it. Because if you don't, it's going to be like Bob said. You're going to have a few teams from the Power 5 that are going to break away from the other Power 5. And microcosm it down to like maybe the top 40 or 50 teams. Maybe even less than that. And I don't want that, because then you take away from so many traditions. The reason why I love college football is it's not like the NFL, and the fact that you have so many traditions and you have so many teams and traditions and whatnot that you get to learn and educate yourself on every year. You have the bands that play at halftime. You have the cheerleaders that are much better than NFL cheerleaders. It's just so much tradition and just the hometown feel of college football that I like much more than NFL. So I don't want to see it become that. But they're going to have to microcosm it down to like the Power 5 conferences, where it's like maybe anywhere from 60 to 70 teams that can compete on a fair, regular basis. Right now you have teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC, all of them breaking away, not just from the lower tier, the non-Power 5, but they're breaking away from teams even within their own conferences. And it's just not fair, man. I'm a fan of one of those teams, and I'm telling you, it's not right. So what they need to do is have a set amount that everybody gets paid. Sort of like something that Oklahoma did. Like, give every starter $40,000 or $50,000 a year. That's fair. And like, I get tired of hearing these people say, man, they should be able to earn whatever the market brings them. Yeah, y'all want that because y'all want to get y'all's cut. Y'all see it some kind of way of you maybe getting a cut down the road. But the whole thing about the market being fair is a bunch of bullshit, because, like I said before, man, these kids coming straight out of high school, they don't know how to handle this kind of money. They don't know they're not mature enough. And you're going to have a lot of kids that are just going to go, to me, they're probably going to go off the deep end at some point, because they're just not going to be able to handle all this pressure and all this responsibility that goes along with making this kind of money. Because you're going to have people coming at them, and they're going to get conned. And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see these kids conned and be out of football within 2 years because they just get overwhelmed. And that's why the NFL is backwards. Because your employees should not be making more than the boss, or people that have done their time in the game of football or in whatever field they're in, done their time and become a boss. They should be making more money than the people underneath them. And these coaches make plenty of money. They make millions of dollars. But these players, they don't need to be just thrown in there where you got one guy making $5 million and then you have the guy that's protecting him, the left tackle or whatever, making nothing. So that's not right, man, because everybody's got a worth, and everybody should be given something. If you're a starter, you should make $50,000 a year. Anything less than that, they can just microcosm it down a little bit, maybe pay, $5,000, $10,000 to people that's not starters. But there's ways that you can do this, and people wanting to fight it. People that, like I said, is claiming, oh, that's what the market brings, that's what you should get. No, man, it's not that simple. These kids are very impressionable. Is like people like to call them kids all the time, but I don't like to call them kids. We already know that. I call them young men. But these people call them kids. If they're really kids, then they need some guidance. And whether they like it or not, it's just like a teenager don't like you to give them guidance, but they got to have it to learn. So I'm with Bob Stoops on this. You need to sit down, maybe form a new governing body of some sort. Hell, Bob could even be the czar. And maybe even sit down with the NFL and come up with some kind of rules and regulations, and get this tampering and all this over-the-top transfer portal shit under control. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.